The 7 basic questions. Learn how to find out quickly and easily what anyone is thinking and feeling in any situation or circumstances. Is this person hiding anything? The first question. Second is thumbs up or down. Does he like it or not? Third, is she confident or just trying to play it cool? Fourth, how are things? How are things really? Fifth, is he interested or are you wasting your time? Sixth, whose side is she really on? Seventh, how safe, stable, and sane is a person? Chapter 1. Is this person hiding anything? Honesty may be the best policy, but it's important to remember that apparently, by elimination, dishonesty is the second best policy. George Carlin. When you have a sneaking suspicion that another person may be up to something underhanded, you are left with 3 bleak options. Confront the person, ignore the situation, or try to gather more information. If you confront the person, not only does it put him or her on the defensive, but if it turns out you are wrong, there is a good chance you may appear paranoid or jealous and the relationship will suffer. Ignoring the situation can be difficult and possibly damaging to you. Finally, trying to gather more fact on your own is time consuming and can work against you if you get caught snooping around. Whenever you have a gut feeling that something dishonest is going on, such as your teenage child doing drugs, a stealing employee, or a disloyal friend, use one of the following techniques to find out what a person is really up to or has on his mind. Technique 1. The mind reader. This technique, which I originally introduced in my book Never Be Lied to Again, virtually guarantees that you can find out within minutes if someone has something to hide. It works like a Rorschach test, also commonly referred to as an ink blot test. The Rorschach test consists of abstract, bilaterally symmetrical splotches of ink blots. The theory behind the test is that a person's interpretation of the shapes will reveal his or her unconscious attitude and thoughts. With our technique, we use the same theory but employ it in an entirely new way, verbally. You ask a question that does not accuse the other person of anything but does allude to the situation. Then simply by gauging the response, you will be able to find out if the person has something to hide. By doing this, you can bring up a sensitive subject and find out if someone is comfortable or concerned with the topic, all without making a single accusation. Let's look at an example. Snapshot. A sales manager thinks one of his salespeople may be stealing office supplies. Asking outright, "Have you been stealing from the company?" would put the employee on the defensive immediately, making it nearly impossible to get the truth out of her. If she is not guilty, she will of course tell the manager that she has not been stealing. If she is guilty, she will probably lie and say she hasn't pilfered any supplies. Instead, the manager might simply say something non-threatening such as, "Zil, I am wondering if you could help me with something. It's come to my attention that someone in the sales department has been taking home office supplies for personal use. Do you have any idea how we can put a stop to this?" Now he simply observes her reaction. If she asks questions and seems interested in the topic of conversation, he can be reasonably sure she is not stealing. But if she becomes very uneasy and seeks to change the subject, then it's likely that she is guilty. The manager will notice an immediate shift in her demeanor and attitude. For detailed signs of anxiety and insecurity, please see chapter 3. If she is innocent, she is likely to offer her advice and be pleased he sought out her opinion. If guilty, she will become noticeably uncomfortable and probably will assure him that she would never do anything like stealing. No reason exists for her to bring herself into the picture unless, of course, she is the one who feels guilty. Another way to apply the technique is to simply wonder aloud how someone could do a particular thing, what you think the other is doing, and gauge the person's response. Let's see how wondering aloud works. A woman thinks her date is acting slightly odd and wonders if he is taking some kind of substance, prescribed or otherwise. To find out, she can ponder aloud. Isn't it interesting that people can use drugs and think that others don't know? Alternatively, she could say, I was just reading an article that said 33% of adults have tried recreational drugs at one time or another in their lives. She indirectly raises the subject, observing whether his reaction will indicate if he is hiding his own drug use. Someone who is not engaged in the actions he mentions is likely to join in the conversation willingly, while someone who is involved in the behavior will move to shift the topic of conversation. This technique can also be applied by actually asking the other person for his advice. A hospital administrator suspects a doctor is drinking on duty. She might say, Dr. Smith, I would like to get your advice on something. A colleague of mine at another hospital has problem with one of her doctors. She feels he may be drinking while on call. Do you have any suggestions on how she can be best approached? Again, if he is guilty of the same behavior, drinking on duty, he is likely to become very uncomfortable. If he isn't drinking on duty, then he will be pleased you sought his advice and will offer it willingly and happily. Technique 2. Paging Dr. Bombay. If you think someone knows someone or something specific, the paging Dr. Bombay technique can be used to help find the truth. The technique works on a psychological principle. A person is drawn equally to what he has no prior knowledge of. Simply, if a person has never heard of Fred, Peter, or Marvin, his interest in them will be equal. Conversely, his attention will naturally be drawn to what he is most familiar with. If he knows Marvin but not the other two, he will pay more attention when Marvin's name is mentioned, in contrast to the other two names. This technique represents the person with evenly available options. If his interest moves unevenly in one direction, it's likely that he has an awareness of certain information that has not revealed to you. Here is how it works. A personal manager thinks Jimmy may be planning to leave the company and take a list of clients with him. He suspects Jimmy has already met with Mr. Black, the owner of a competing company. Therefore, the manager simply sits Jimmy down and casually put three folders on the desk labeled Mr. Green, Mr. Blue, and Mr. Black. If Jimmy already has met or is planning to meet Mr. Black, his gaze will at first fix longer on Mr. Black's file than on the other file. Then he may try to avert his focus from the file, whereby his attention will appear mechanical and uneven. Another way to apply the technique is by merely talking about the situation and listening to his focus. First, state all the facts as you both know them to be, then switch one of them. If his attention goes to the switched fact, then you know conclusively that he is aware of the situation itself. For example, let's say a detective is interviewing a suspect about robbery. He reads from the report telling his suspect exactly what happened, but switches a key point about the facts of the crime. If the suspect is guilty, his attention will instinctively go to the key point. What he hears surprises him. He wants to be sure he heard you right, and he will use the inconsistency as a reason why he could not have committed the crime. The only way he would know to focus on one fact could be if he committed the crime. If he is innocent, then all of the crime's details are unknown to him, so he is incapable of separating them into true or false categories. Let's see what this dialogue sounds like in action. The detective reads the fact to his suspects as he knows them. The suspect shot the teller, left in a green sedan with Californian license plate. Bracket then add one piece of false information, that is, crashed into another car, got out, jumped over a fence, and got away. If the suspect is guilty, he will question the incorrect details. Crashed into another car? My car doesn't have a scratch on it. It couldn't have been my car. His proof of innocence uses the one false piece of information. By using it, he reveals he knows the whole story. Technique 3. What do you think? The key to this technique is not to accuse, but inform. Your subject's response will tell you if he is hiding anything. The sequence explores a person's frame of mind when he is presented with new information. For example, Pauline visits her doctor for a routine physical. When a doctor gets the blood test results back, he calls to inform her she has contracted the herpes virus. Thinking back over her recent sexual partners, she is convinced that Mike or Howie must have given her disease. Merely asking her two suspects if they knowingly gave her herpes would most likely prove futile, as denial by both would be likely. Here is what she does. Pauline calls both guys and casually informs them she just found out she has herpes. The response she receives lead her straight to the culprit. After hearing the news, the two men responded as follows. Mike: well, don't look at me. I don't give it to you. I am clean. Howie: you what? How long have you had it? You might have given it to me. I can't believe this. Are you sure? Who is most likely to be the guilty party? If you guessed Mike, you are right. On hearing that Pauline has an incurable, easily transmittable disease, he goes on the defensive, assuming he is being accused of infecting her with herpes. He is unconcerned about his own health because he already knows he is infected. All he wants is to convince Pauline that he is not guilty. Harvey, in contrast, assumes the call is to inform him she might have infected him. Thus, he gets angry because he is concerned about his health. Simply, a person wrongly accused will be more likely to go on the offensive, while the guilty party is usually assumes a defensive posture. Here is another example. Let's say you are working in the customer service department of a computer store. A customer brings a non-working printer for an exchange, claiming he bought it in few days ago. He has all the important receipt and the printer is packed neatly in the original box. Upon inspecting the contents, you find a necessary, expensive, and easily removable component of the machine missing, a clear indication of why the machine is not functioning properly. Here are two possible responses you might get after informing the customer of your discovery. Response 1: I didn't take it out. That's how it was when I bought it. Response 2: what? You sold me a printer that has a missing part. I wasted 2 hours trying to get things to work. Do you see how effective this is? The person who gives response 2 has every right to be annoyed and goes on the offensive. It never crosses his mind that he is being accused of anything. The person who gives response 1 knows he never tried to get the printer to work because he took the part out. It does not occur to him to become angry. He automatically assumes he is being accused of removing the part and become defensive when informed the part is missing. Technique 4: dodge or declare. When using this technique, the object is to attach your suspicion to something you know is true about a person but completely unrelated. If he tries to hide or deny the truth about what you know for sure, you have the answer to your suspicion. However, if he freely acknowledges the existence of your claim but denies the relationship, then your suspicion is likely untrue. Let's take a look. Henry wonders if his date is an alcoholic. He already knows Elaine always chews gum after her meals, are likely unrelated and certainly benign activity. Therefore, he would say something such as, I was reading a study that alcoholics tend to chew gum after meals. Now, if Alain is an alcoholic, he will notice she will, in addition to becoming uncomfortable, probably choose to not chew the gum after eating. You see, she will have no reason to deviate from her usual behavior unless it shows her in an unflattering light. Moreover, she has no reason to doubt the veracity of Henry's research statement. She is probably thinking, oh, that's just what I do. However, if she is not an alcoholic, she will say to him, she always chews gum after meals, so the study cannot be completely true. Of course, she might not chew the gum to avoid her date, assuming otherwise, even if she does not drink excessively. But the odds are she won't deny herself an enjoyable routine and give up a chance to refuse his study merely to avoid presenting a wrong appearance. Technique 5. Fear of folly. When stakes are high, fear of folly is a great technique to determine what someone's hiding, regardless of how good an actor he may be. To apply the psychology of technique, you inform your subject he and another person, a confederate working with you, are both suspects, and you attach an unwelcome quality to the person who is guilty. Then gauge your subject's behavior. If the interaction with the other person causes him concern, it's likely that he is innocent. For example, a police detective puts his suspect into a holding cell and declares, okay, we know one of you is guilty, and the blood found at the scene tells us the perpetrator has hepatitis C. Now, when the confederate bleeding from his hand approaches your suspect, if he is not guilty, he will move away and become alarmed. He knows the other guy must be responsible. However, if he is guilty, he has no reason to be concerned about his person having hepatitis. He assumes he has hepatitis because he already knows he is guilty. You can also use this technique in group by merely attaching your marker to the suspicion and not the suspect. Subsequently, the suspect will show himself. For example, a manager wanting to find out who went through his desk might say, whoever went into the office will be fired. The rest of you will get a promotion for enduring this investigation. Now, he simply observes his suspect's subsequent behavior. If he is excited or inquires about the salary and benefits of the new job, then he is probably innocent. Otherwise, sitting silently demonstrates a strong sign he was behind the break-in. Technique 6. How would you do it? This technique works under the premise that a guilty person will do whatever he can to give the impression of innocence. By asking outright how your suspect would do the very thing that you accuse him of, you gain a great insight into his thinking. The psychological assumption is this: when a situation presents only one reasonable way to do something and the person picks an out-of-the-box answer, it is worthy of further investigation. For example, Helen believes her bookkeeper, Mitch, has been skimming money from a petty fund account. Embezzling would be easy for him because there are no real checks and balances. While he denies stealing money, she has her suspicion. Therefore, in a light, carefree moment, she says, if you were to steal, how would you go about doing it? If he responds with a convoluted answer like, well, thinking off the top of my head, I would keep a separate set of books and then use invisible ink, he is probably hiding something. Why? The right answer would be to do it the easy way, by taking money from the petty funds. However, since he doesn't want her to know he has the thought of petty funds, he comes up with a roundabout way of stealing. A quick take. A traveler comes to a fork in the road leading to two villages. In one village, the people always tell lies, and in another village, the people always tell the truth. The traveler needs to conduct business in the village where everyone always tells the truth. A man from one of the villages is standing in the middle of the fork, but there is no indication of which village he resides in. The traveler approaches the man and asks him just one question. From the man's answer, he knows which road to follow. What did the traveler ask? The answer is, which way to your village? He goes that way. Remember, he needs to go to the truth tellers. If the man is telling the truth, he will direct him in the right direction. If the man is telling a lie, he will direct him in the right direction. Either way, he knows which way to go. An alternative solution is to ask, what would the other person tell me to do? Then go the other way.